I don't think AI can help you with building relationships, despite what Cluely says. I think the ability to understand each other, even when we don't say it, is something that is very innately human.
Yi, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. This is like so cool. I love talking to founders of tech companies, and yeah, you have a really cool background. I see that you started your career as a research assistant at MIT, and then you worked your way all the way up to being a product manager at Meta. And you did that for a while, and now you are a co-founder of Be Simple AI. So yeah, I just love to hear from your words. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think my career journey is less windy than some of the other people. I actually started off as a PM, worked as a PM for close to 8 years. And then throughout the process, I love working with engineers. I love building. And earlier this year, I wanted to see what I can build on my own. So
Mhm.
I left Meta, started Simple with my co-founder. But it was really less windy. I actually was very lucky to found a career that I like right off of college and was able to do it for like 8+ years. I would say the work I'm doing now is very similar to PM. It's just a lot broader than a traditional PM role. But I think I continue to really love the building and collaborating aspect of PM, which I, just continue to love for the past few years. So yeah.
That is so cool. And then for my listeners that don't know what Be Simple AI is, could you break down exactly what you guys do?
Yeah, we are a human in the loop data company. We provide data to AI labs, to AI companies, and help them really land going from like calling ChatGPT API to actually being able to land something in production. So we help them with really mission critical data like evaluation or like safety testing. And the goal is to put people where you need them to be today. I don't think I believe firmly in human in the loop. I just don't believe you have to have human in every
Hmm.
loop. There are many, many things right now. They're better than with AI. But they're of course something that you continue to want to have human intelligence in. And that's actually
Hmm.
the part that we want to play.
Love that. That is awesome. Yeah. So from my understanding, like, so you started with product management. Now you founded this AI company. I guess what was the biggest pain point that you experienced as a product manager that made you want to go out and like start your own company?
Yeah, back when I was at Meta, I was leading the AI for integrity team. So think about building the models that support Meta's content moderation, account
Hmm.
abuse, all of that. We were building the model for that on top of Meta's Llama model at the time. And before, we were
Yeah.
building it on top of smaller models that were built by Fair. So we're essentially kind of like an application layer within Meta. We don't build models
Oh.
from quote unquote scratch. Like we do use a lot of foundational models supplied by other teams. But our goal is to really make it work for our specific use case, which is like given a content or given an account. Well, is this likely to violate our policy or not? And then take some
Hmm.
action for that. So in that sense, we're like pretty similar to like a quote unquote AI application companies out there today that are trying to take a Gemini model, a GPT model, and make it work for a specific domain. And one thing that we know from working on this at the time was like the models right off the bat, it would be quite good because it's trained on a lot of data, but it just doesn't
Hmm.
understand Meta's policy. It doesn't understand how our users talk when they want to talk about hate speech, when they want to be like, when they're actually like a spam bot, for example. It just like lacks all of those specific contexts. And a lot
Hmm.
of our development time at the time wasn't actually like building model, it's actually curating the data that's needed to fine tune those models for our use case. So at the time we actually spent quite a lot of development time as well as ops time, but just like a lot of XFN
Yeah.
effort goes into actually curating this data for our specific use case. And my co-founder at the time worked on the annotation platform to help Meta's Llama model get the training data it needs. So both of us see the needs for domain-specific data when it comes
Mm.
to building these applications. And we know our challenge wasn't unique to us. I mean, obviously, Meta's
Mm.
integrity effort is one of the hardest because of all the 2 billion plus users
Yeah.
that it has and all the different complicated policy and the global presence and all that. But as I think any AI companies that's looking to build support agents or customer inbound or outbound, right? Like all of these things are getting built right now. They
Hmm.
all require domain specific data. So that's the part that we learn at Meta. Both of us felt really passionate about this. So that's why we left and started BitSimple.
That is so cool. So did you and your co-founder meet at Meta?
We're actually friends since college. We just
Oh yeah.
happened to be on sister teams at Meta at the end as well. So we became
Oh,
colleagues,
that's
but we
cool.
were friends to start with. Yes.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. Um, that's really cool. So, what is like your like this sounds rather quite complex. Like what you and your co-founder are going
Hmm.
after, like this challenge that you're going after to fix. I'm curious, what is like your ideal customer for
Hmm.
your services? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say our ideal customers are going to be any teams. Either they're like kind of like an AI team within a tech company, or they're like an AI team within a more traditional company, or they're kind of like one of those AI labs. I would say our
Mm,
customers
okay.
are anyone who's looking to ship AI models into production for a specific use case. Right? So they are not necessarily the people who are building these foundational models and
Mm,
releasing GPT 6, 7, whatever naming Sam comes up with later, but they are certainly
mm,
leveraging those models and trying to apply it. So very similar to the role that I was playing at Meta. And in terms of like the stage they're in, etc., that's more kind of like an
mm.
equation of where we are and the type of customers that we can support. But I would say, in terms of the people who need this type of data, is anyone who's shipping stuff into production that cares about like reliability of the model.
Okay, that is so cool. That is so cool. So it's very B2B focused. So along with that, how are you, say, working to get your products, your software
Mhm.
into the hands of your ideal customer? Like what's your favorite B2B marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we're testing out a bunch of things right now. We actually have a few growth hires recently who's helping us
Nice.
test out different things. But I don't know if I have like a favorite one yet. I think
Mm.
certainly having come from Y Combinator. Y Combinator is one of the biggest source of pumping out AI startups right now.
Yeah.
So that certainly is something that we leverage a lot, the network that we have, having been a
Nice.
YC company ourselves. I would say in general, we do a lot of LinkedIn outreach. We do a lot less email today, although that's probably going to change. And I think I do see generally a lot of people struggle to understand what type of eval data they want. So it's less like, I know
Mhm.
exactly the data I want. I just needed someone to go and do this for me. Is actually like they need a lot of help in even understanding the type of data that might be helpful for their use case. So we do a little bit part consulting there as well, as with I think any white glove service provider that provides data. But certainly, I do think that building connection with founders and trying to understand where they're stuck and where they're
Mm.
having the biggest issue, building that longer term relationship has served us well. I mean, compared to kind of like just like straight up outbounds and stuff up to this point. I do think we're ready to scale up, but I think up to this point, I think having a little bit more personal relationship and longer term understanding of what they're doing and the type of challenges they run into has helped us quite a bit.
I love it. I love it. Like I'm currently working at Paramify where like I was like the founding marketer and like we've scaled to where we are today, but we've kind of seen something very similar. It's like relationships are almost everything, especially when it comes to B2B.
Hmm.
And it's cool that you guys are kind of seeing similar type of thing. It's like, yes, outbound's
Yeah,
very important, but also relationships, everything comes back to like people want to do business with people that they like.
that like exactly.
Yeah, that is so cool. So, and since you guys are just starting up, you've been around
Hmm.
for 8 months now, correct?
Yeah.
How has your strategy to like adapted over these
Hmm.
last 8 months?
Like because of the change in AI or just because of how where we're moving.
Let's say because of the change of AI, and then let's go into the
Hmm.
secondary question of just how you guys have been moving.
The business, yeah. So I think from a tooling perspective, I certainly leverage ChatGPT a lot when I'm writing out whatever message I'm trying to send. I more or less use it to give me ideas. I will always ask it to write 10 variants, for example. And then from there I will pick a few that resonate better with me. And then I
Mhm.
might do some combination of them to make it sound like closer to my voice and also like better narrative, for example.
Yeah.
So I certainly do use ChatGPT a lot in helping me creating those. And I think and the other thing I think with content marketing is also is less about what you say, it's about how people understand it as well. So trying to get more data on how people like which part are people resonating to more, trying to read body language in demo calls. And like there are certain phrases when I say it and people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But there are certain times when just like a slight different rephrasing, I think people understand that a lot better. So I think it's certainly a lot of intuition and
Mhm.
expertise and experience that still needs to go into understanding what is like good marketing. I don't think ChatGPT can help you with that, but it certainly is
Yeah.
not bad at coming up with semi okay ideas and lots of
Yeah.
semi okay ideas that can then maybe be worked into better ideas and better drafts.
Yeah. I love it. And then how has your marketing strategy like changed over the last 8 months just as a business?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we do provide kind of like human in the loop data, and we spent a lot of past 8 months trying to learn about where is the most critical for this to be, right? Like,
Mhm.
is it eval? Is it training data? Are people doing a lot of fine tuning, right? Are people needing more audio data and video data, etc.? So I would say we did a lot of experiment and exploration in that lens, and then we certainly do change our marketing message according to it. I don't know if we have necessarily significantly changed our strategy overall. It has
Mhm.
been relatively, I would say, relationship based, network based up to this point, but we're doing a lot more experimentation right now with the new hires that we have, and hopefully we'll actually have a more coherent strategy
Yeah.
across the board.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I remember just for me, I would have been like one of those first hires and Kenny, Pranify's founder, just being like, hey man, figure it out.
Hmm.
You guys are in for a pretty fun ride. It's pretty
Hmm.
fun experimenting and figuring out a strategy that works for your niche. So you're a founder of a AI company. And I'm just really curious, since you are a founder of an
Hmm.
AI company, where do you see AI going in the next 5 years, and how do you think it will affect your team and your company as you grow?
Yeah, I think I would say past 1 year, I think the pace of AI development was really astounding. I think especially from I'll say GPT-4 to o3 Pro was like the biggest leap. I think then
Yeah.
it has kind of slowed down a little bit. But I
Mhm.
think in terms of where it's going the next 5 years, I do think there's a lot of things that was launched in the past 2 years that I don't think everybody has fully absorbed.
Yeah.
And because of the pace that in which these things have been happening, now I've definitely seen a lot of founders investing in just waiting. Like, I'm just gonna wait for the
Yeah.
next version of GPT and somehow it's gonna make my life magically better and I don't need to do things like evaluation or like robust testing, all of that. But I do think that might change, right? Especially if we feel that a lot of things are gonna slow down. Then I think people are gonna recognize, hey, maybe, if you just call GPT model out of the box, it's gonna get you 80% there. And the next version is gonna get you 81% there. And that's not gonna be fast
Yeah.
enough for you. Right. So I do think that people are going to invest a lot more in both eval and potentially doing more reinforcement learning for their
Mhm.
specific domain because they can no longer bank on the underlying model to have such a big effect. This was kind of not the case a few years ago, or maybe even 1 or 2 years ago, because like the jump between GPT-3 and 3.5 and 4, like that, those are
Yeah.
huge jumps, right? Like, so no matter what kind of RL that you were doing in the back and fine tuning you were doing in the back, it's like, it doesn't matter. You're just going to get like completely beaten by the next version of the model because it was gotten so good. I don't know if we will see that in the next year. So I
Mhm.
certainly think having like startups navigating through that is going to be something that we'll see more of in the next year. Compared to, I think, the previous, where the people are just getting very excited, waiting and doing some pop optimization and just be happy with that.
Mhm.
So I think that's like one trend. I think the second thing
Mhm.
is, I think we'll see a lot more in workplace. I mean, there was certainly a lot of hype around, "Oh, it's going to replace all the software engineer. It's going to replace all the just job function." Like all of this hype we're getting thrown
Yeah.
around in the past 2 years. I don't think that's really going to happen. But I certainly do think that the next 5 years, workplace is going to change a lot. I think not necessarily because AI is going to replace these people, but because of the way that people would use AI at work. I think people are
Mhm.
still learning the extent of what these tools can do today. And
Mhm.
once we have the next generation of workers that have essentially kind of like mastered this, I think we're going to see a very, very different workforce that behaves really differently than people who are not used to using AI models. And I think that is actually going to have a really dramatic change in
Yeah.
workplace. Not necessarily having AI come in and take your job, but really having the next college grad come in who is 100 times faster at what they're doing because they really, really do know where they can use AI and where they should use their expertise. So that's probably two trends at work. Watch out for.
Yeah, yeah. I really agree with that. I'm very wishy-washy with this. Like from seeing the jumps from like say 2022 to like now, I'm like, whoa, like this is
Yeah,
moving so fast. I could see
huge.
this
Yes,
being like
yes.
insane. Like if that trend continued. But then to your point, it's like things have really slowed down over this
Mm-hmm.
last year where it's
Yep.
like incremental changes. And yeah, if I think if that is the case, like where it's just more incremental and not these massive leaps that we have seen over the last few years, I think you're absolutely right. It's probably just going to be like software part two, you know, where it's like everyone's educated on using their AI tools and are just way faster and are able to do way cooler things. But it's like ultimately your job's not being taken. You're still, you can do whatever you want to do. It's because, yeah, I was seeing like a lot of stuff, say on social media, lots of conversations around like, this is almost end of the world. Like GG, like this is it. There's no going to be no jobs in the future. But I think we're more so trending towards what you were saying. Incremental changes. There's going to be a lot of niche tools and smarter and faster workforce.
I think with that said, though, I do think people who are not adapting to it will have a really tough, like, next
Oh
few
yeah.
years. Yeah, like, I do think what you're saying is true that, like, if you got really good at this, you got way better at your job because of AI, then you're certainly not going anywhere, right? But I
Yeah.
think there would be people who are left behind, and I think it has to do a lot with mindset, but also training. I mean, I do see a
Mm,
lot of people have a lot of interest in learning about AI. Like even when I was doing customer outreach, like there are people who are really, really senior who are just willing to talk to me because they do want to
mm,
learn about what's the latest in AI. They want to learn about how that changes their industry. And so I think I do see people have a lot of interest in learning about this. But I mean,
mhm,
obviously it's very different talking about it versus using it versus really understanding it, mastering it, and so on. But I do think if we don't
mhm.
provide enough training for these people and we don't upskill the workforce, then there will be people who are left behind. I think just like people who don't know how to use computer will have a really hard time finding almost any job today. I think that's going to be the parallel.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's like trying to be a graphic designer, but you're
We
just
don't
doing it
use Figma.
manually by
Yeah.
hand. Yeah, you don't use
Yeah.
Figma, you don't use Photoshop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's absolutely where we're going. So it's going to be a really interesting future. I think it's going to be really fun. I think we're also going to see a lot of say I think companies like yours where it's like solving these very specific problems and it's going to compound year over year where it's like these companies are going to scale and I think ultimately those that use the tools it's like we're going to be so much more efficient and everyone's lives I think will be a little bit better. Ultimately, I
yeah.
think it's a positive trend, but yeah, you have to be keeping up with the technology for it
Yep,
to see the benefit.
definitely.
Yeah. I am curious, what's your like go-to favorite AI tool that you use on your day-to-day?
The tool that I use on day to day for almost all tasks is ChatGPT.
Yeah, same.
It's actually really interesting because I don't find Gemini to be that far off, but I just almost
Mhm,
don't have any intention of going to Gemini, maybe except to use Nano Banana to generate an image.
mm,
So I think ChatGPT did a great job, both in terms of the user experience as well as the model. I think you like if you have a very dumb model but very great experience, it almost doesn't really matter in this
mhm,
game. But I think they did a really good combination. The tool remains extremely flexible for whatever I throw at it. I mean, there are often times where I like ask it to do a test and just like not doing what I necessarily want, not performing up to my bar. And like just for example, sometimes even writing emails, not writing the email that I want to send.
mm,
But it does give enough good starting point for me that it does feel like a very natural flow right now that like hey I need to draft this email, I'm just going to put down some really unstructured thoughts and then go to
mhm,
ChatGPT and say hey please polish this up for me, or like maybe frame this thing in 10 different ways with 10 different plots or 10 different framing for example that I can then use to modify on top. So that's something that I do use daily. I also been really into granola lately.
Oh,
I was
really?
not into any of the AI meeting notes tool for a while. I was more that like
Mhm.
I like to take my own notes because I like to note down what's important for me. I have pretty good memories. I generally don't go back and read transcripts almost ever.
Yeah.
But I think having tried Granola for the past, I think, 2 weeks, it is pretty helpful to type in something but not have to worry about typing in everything. I mean,
Mhm.
it does make mistakes sometimes, does hallucinate. I think the fact that I was able to type in something and guide it in the right direction does make it a little bit more useful than I think some of the other meeting notes tool, which like whenever I go and read those, I'm just like, okay, this is not very useful. It doesn't capture
Yeah.
anything that I need.
Yeah, yeah. We, at Brownfly, we're using a tool called Ask Elephant. It's like for
Mm.
our meeting notes tools, and like because we went through like a whole bunch of them, but with this one, the reason why we chose it was basically it will record all of our meetings, right? But then
Mm.
you can just go in, and it'll have a database, and you just search like, oh, I said this
Oh.
one sentence, I think I remember. You can just like search it, and it'll
Mm.
bring up like the key bullet points of
Mm.
whatever conversation. And it's nice for like our larger team because then it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, cool.
Can remember.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, those granola, I actually haven't heard of that one.
Really, it's really hot.
No, I miss
It's
it.
really hot. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's really, really hot right now. So
Yeah, I'll need to check it out. That's cool. So yeah, that's awesome. And I guess uh do you have any more underground AI tools that you've been using recently?
yeah, I don't use a lot of underground AI tools. I use the ones that
Mm,
are generally like, very well known and popular. I mean, I
yeah.
use Codex a lot. I use Cloud Code a lot as well. I don't use Cursor as much. I mean, in my day to day, I think mostly it's ChatGPT plus Codex. And actually, one
Mm,
thing that I do use Codex a lot that I don't, I think I would recommend all PMs to use more was that I actually been using
mhm,
it to do a lot of data processing recently. It's like I don't know how many people are really good at writing Python scripts or Node scripts, so I'm not like extremely fast in doing it. But you can almost do this thing where you can just describe to it what type of data transformation you want. And because it's very easy to verify, you can check the output to see if it did it correctly or not. Then you can actually put it on autopilot mode to write all kinds of script for you. And I use that to do some pretty complicated manipulation and all done via Codex. And I wouldn't say I'm the best at writing this type of script ever, but was pretty good at it now because of Codex. And I mean, I know people use it to write all kinds of software, but I think in terms of writing script, it's like incredibly good at this task, and it's this thing where it's like hard for a human to do because like you have to like write out all the different edge cases. Like it's not the easiest thing to write. You kind of have to spend some time doing it, but it's very easy
mm,
for you to verify if somebody else do it correctly or not, right? You can look at how like the data transformation to see like whether it performed the right steps or not. You can do some spot checks to make sure it calculated everything correctly. So it actually makes it really, really good for AI to do because it makes it really easy for human to verify. So yeah, so that's one use case that I've been doing a lot with Codex that I don't think enough PMs do. And if you do that, you don't have to go to
yeah.
the DS as much actually.
That is so cool. That is so cool. So it sounds like you're like, I mean, you're using AI a ton, which makes sense. You're an AI founder. Yeah, you're in it. I'm curious, with you being like a co-founder, have you been able to automate like a whole element of
Mm.
your job?
I would say actually not as much.
Mm,
Like even for all the outbound that we're doing, do we use automation? Like yes, we do use automation for like doing repeated calls and stuff. But even like the messages, crafting it, like there's still a lot of human aspect to it in terms of like coming up with a variant, making sure that it's phrased correctly. You don't want to be just advertising incorrectly either. But
yeah.
also kind of like the end to end of like who's the ICP, all of that. I don't think all of that like can be automated away. So I actually don't think I found a case where like an entire part of my job is like entirely automated. For me, most of it is it can automate a large chunk of it. And then there is still significant human input needed both at the beginning as well as at the end to make sure that
Mhm,
it's in the right direction. But all in all, it's so much faster to be doing this compared to
mhm.
the old way. But I actually honestly haven't found a case where it can automate an entire function directly. I don't think it actually has enough context. I don't think it has enough human element to it.
Mhm.
That's why I'm not happy with some of the email drafts it writes, or like, I never
Yeah.
use it to write investor updates because it just doesn't sound right? It doesn't sound human at this point.
Mm.
So I haven't found a case where I've been able to do 100%. I think I've been found in cases where I can do 60%. And that's a pretty big game changer when so if you're a company this small, but certainly not 100%. And I also don't think it will be anytime soon. I think it will probably be continuing this case for a while until we don't need humans to improve AI, in which case we don't need a human in the loop data company at that point.
Yeah.
But I do think that's actually
Mhm.
farther out than a lot of some people make it to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's there's a lot of hype like the last few months where it's like, oh, like 1 year from now we're gonna have AGI. And it's like, yeah, probably not. It's probably gonna be a long ways
So
out.
my theory of why we would not get there, there was like this blog, AI 2027, that was like pretty popular in the
Yeah.
Valley at some point. I was reading, I was like, I don't think this is going to happen. And my reason actually isn't grounded in the tech side. I actually don't know whether we're technically close or not. The reason why I said it's not going to happen is actually because of human nature. I think we as humans are pretty good at infighting and pretty good at
Mhm.
backstabbing, that we will prevent each other from doing this. And I think you can kind of see that play out already, right? Like Meta going in and try to hire the best researchers from OpenAI, which will certainly slow down OpenAI. Like within OpenAI reorgs, right? Meta, there were like 4 reorgs in 6 months. I think those are all evidence that we're not going to hit AGI. As long as humans are involved, we're just too good at slowing ourselves down. But that's actually my theory when I was reading the blog. I was like, this is not going to happen because we're just too good at not doing the right things.
That's actually so funny. Yeah, we just self-sabotage like each
Yeah.
other enough that it just keeps like OpenAI stifles Meta, Meta stifles OpenAI, and just rinse repeat.
Yeah. Egos of the billionaires are going to come in the way of building AGI.
Yeah. I think that there may be some truth there. Honestly, that's fine. I have never heard that before, but honestly, yeah, you totally see that. It's like got Zuckerberg just stealing everyone he can.
Yeah.
That's wild. So I am curious. So you're a founder. What do you think is the most like AI proof element
Mm,
of your
mm.
job or what you do?
I don't think AI can help you with building relationship, despite what Cluely says, I think. I just don't see that. I mean, I know some people are really good at reading the room. Some people are really good at just like reading the room and trying to understand what's going on, being able to like navigate really complex like situations, dealing with people politics. Some people are not very good at that. I do think AI can play like kind of like a leveling field and helping people who are not very good at reading the room have some basic understanding of what's going on. But I don't think that I don't think that part is going to get replaced by AI anytime soon. I think the ability to understand each other, even when we don't say it, is something that is very innately human. And that's very different than how we interact with a chatbot. With a chatbot, you kind of almost have to like say everything. Everything you exclude is going to come back to you. And then later around, you're like, I forgot to give it that context. That's too bad. That's not
Mhm,
human. Like you and I don't go on and I just try to give you everything context before I go and ask you a
mhm.
question. Like that's actually not. And because of our like, shared understanding, like social contract, shared culture, like I don't have to say everything for you to fully understand me. And there are like unspoken rules that you read and then you will make some assessment about what I said and then what I actually mean in the bag and all that. I don't think any of that is going to be taken away by, or I don't think any of that's going to get affected by AI. And I think actually it's more important that we do that now because I think preserving the human element is going to be important. I do think that building relationship is a very innately human thing. Especially as AI might do some of the more mundane jobs, it might actually come down to your job is actually reading the room so that you can actually tell AI how to
Yeah.
navigate this, right? Like that might be your only job is to navigate, like, to understand human and trying to pass that context on to AI. So I do think that that's actually is something that I would say every PM should be a master at. Otherwise, don't be a PM. But I do think that's a skill that's very, very important, even going in the next few years. I don't think that's going to get taken away.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really interesting, like let's say on like the marketing side, but then also like the sales side. I see like these in-person events, like these trade shows, becoming so important
Hmm.
because it's like
Yeah.
that's just one of the only ways you can actually build these relationships with say like decision makers at companies,
Yep.
where it's like for yes, you can potentially meet people through like cold outbound and whatnot, but it's very, very difficult compared to say meeting someone
Yeah.
in person.
It's kind of this thing where, like, because outbound is getting so easy now, like, you can
Uh-huh.
do a lot of personalization very easily. Everything you read on the internet might be generated, right? Like, it's just that you are gonna long for the human relationship more than ever, and then being able to build that is gonna be more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes me really think about like as we go down this past say like 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I imagine like most like sales reps and stuff, it's gonna a lot of it's gonna be very like in person, very like people are just gonna
Yeah.
crave human connection so much. Um
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's kind of this thing where, like, if you were sales before, you were probably spending a lot of time setting up outbound, like dealing with this tools and that tool and scraping leads and all that. And like all of that is actually not selling, right? All of that's kind of the steps before you sell. Right? Like, and all of that has nothing to do with actual selling the product. But I hope it
Yeah.
frees up to do actually more of the selling and more of the in-person
Mhm.
aspect and not just like going into Apollo and cleaning up leads every Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And here's a kind of funny question for you. Can you share a story of something that you've say maybe it's from being a PM throughout all these years, or maybe it's being a founder, a story of something that like just totally flopped and like what you took away from
Mm.
it?
Yeah, I would say when we were building the startup, there was one time when we were like, "Hey, I don't know if we like may do should we like try to pivot? Should we look into a different idea?" And we actually spent a
Mhm.
little bit of time thinking through this. And there was like one week that I was like, "Oh, maybe we should build a design tool." And at the time, my co-founder was like, "You're not a designer. Why would you build a design tool?" And I was like, "Well, but I'm a designer wanna be," which makes me really good, founder market fit. He's like,
Mhm.
that doesn't make any sense. I was like, let me explore this a little bit. And then like a week later, I was like, I think you're right. This doesn't make any sense. I think this kind of thing where like if you we're very good at coming up with reasons why things work and why things don't work. And sometimes you're able to convince yourself, even if it's like a very dumb idea in retrospect.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a case where it's like, if you don't have the founder market fit, it's just that you don't have the founder market fit.
Yeah.
All right, like wanting to be a designer, it's not the same as a designer. It doesn't mean you know how to use Figma. It doesn't mean you understand how to work as a designer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but we went back to our idea pretty quickly after that. So it's like a slight detour. But I do think it's a funny one because at the time, Lovable was like, I mean, still is very popular, but at the time was actually
Mm,
popular.
yeah.
Um, and it's something that we definitely explore. And I was like, when I was working, like using Lovable and using Cloud, etc., I had this just like intuition that like, hey, I don't think this is like fully it. It's like very hard to control this, very hard to control that. Maybe there are some product things that we can do there. But obviously, it's very different than like if I were a PM on Lovable, that's perfect because then I can think about the next feature that I want to build. But if I'm building a company from scratch, that is not a company. Like building something incremental on top of something else is not a company that you can build in the long
Mhm.
term. So,
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's
yeah.
so funny. Yeah, that's I've been very ingrained. So I'm in like Lehigh, Utah. And we have our own little like startup bubble here, and
Mm.
just yeah, I have experienced that many, many times with like founders and even myself. Like I'm like, oh, this would be such a cool idea, but it's like, yeah, do you have any experience? Have no founder fit? Like, yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's probably one of the most important features for a startup to actually
Hmm.
be successful is that founder fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give to other founders out there? Like say people that are just starting out, they're just starting
Mm.
to conceptualize like an idea.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I left Meta, I actually been talking to a lot of people who ask me about, hey, I'm also thinking about something like this. I want to apply Y Combinator. What should I do, etc., etc. I would say the first advice I always give them is that, like, well, do you have a team? Because I do think you can pivot into the right ideas. I think you can execute into the right ideas.
Hmm.
But I don't think you can replace a really good team. All right. And I mean, if you look at Y Combinator stats, I think co-founder breakup is the main reason why startups fail, not because they
Mm.
were in the wrong market, they got out competed. It's not. It's just because there's the wrong team working on this. And Like, I mean, I got a lot of like, well, but do I need to have the idea before I found the co-founder, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, yes, if you are working on Copilot for lawyer and you have zero lawyer on your team, like that sounds to me like you need to find a better team. But I do
Mhm.
think it's more important that you have a team that you can work with, who you can pivot into the right idea based on your experience, your expertise, and like who you're able to recruit later, than it is to have a great idea. Because I don't right now, great ideas are not very useful. You can have a great idea, you can build a
Yeah.
prototype in 2 days, and so can your competitors copy the exact same idea you have with a better executed team and being able to do it much better than you are. And like, so I
Oh
don't
man.
think ideas matters all that much right now. I think certainly like go to market matters a lot more, matters a lot
Uh-huh.
more. So I think for people who are just trying to start out thinking about startups, like building anything, like first thing is if you do have the right team, if you have the right team, yes, go full in on brainstorming and finding the right thing that, you want to work on for the next 10 years. But if you don't have it, I mean, I don't know. I think I should probably look into building a team first, because it's actually, it's much harder to I think it's one thing to have an idea and have a conviction around it. That is good. That is good. Like that is something that people should aim to have, but I don't think it's sufficient in terms of founding a company.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am curious. So when you were starting your company, did you so you knew your co-founder for a very long time. Was it just you and your co-founder, or did you have also like an additional team behind you guys when you're just barely starting?
Well, we were just barely starting. It was just the two of us, actually. We didn't
Mhm.
start hiring until very recently.
Okay.
And I do think we were in a very good. I mean, I think if we were doing this maybe a year ago, this would not have been possible. I think we certainly would have
Mhm.
needed to hire engineers during YC as well to be able to do anything because it just takes time to
Yeah.
build systems, right? That works. But when we were starting out, Cloud Code just got released maybe a couple of weeks before we started. So we actually
Yeah.
we skipped cursor. We went straight into Cloud
Oh,
Code. And my
wow.
co-founder had a really, really good way of working with Cloud Code that makes him really, really efficient. And I think this is the thing where it's like, if you know how to use the tools, you can be 100 times more effective. And we certainly benefited a lot from our timing to be able to stay lean for a much longer period of time. So I think that certainly has helped a lot.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Yes. Getting your company to the point where you can get into Y Combinator and then scale from this point, and now you're just beginning to do those first hires. That's really impressive. Like,
Yeah, I
hats off
mean,
to
it
you
used
guys.
to
That's cool.
be used to be Y Combinator is like kind of like every there are only two batches, right? So it's kind of runs on
Mhm.
for a little bit longer. And then starting our year, I mean, 2025, they got into four batches, and every batch is slightly shorter. And we're like, wait, but we're shorter. How can we have the same traction as someone who had like one additional month? And the answer Y
Mhm.
Combinator would give us time was like, well, you have AI. You should be able to execute a lot
That's
faster. We're
wild.
like, okay.
It's so wild.
So, I mean, I guess there is some truth to it. I wouldn't say it's whole truth.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for someone, say, listening to this that wants to get into, say, Y Combinator or another
Mm.
like high tier incubator? Do you have any advice for those people?
I mean, I think getting into incubator shouldn't be the goal, right? You shouldn't,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, you shouldn't like build a startup to get into an incubator. I
yeah.
think it's the thing where you want to get your startup into a state where the incubator would be really sad if you didn't go to this incubator. And that's
Hmm.
probably the right mindset to have, right? I mean, don't build
Hmm.
like, hey, I think YC would really like this type of company. So I'm going to build my company to be this type of company. So I have a higher chance of getting into YC. That may or may not work in the short term, but I think that certainly will not work in the long term.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I think that's fantastic advice. Yeah, I think that's great because I hear, I at least just out and about, like I'll hear like they're like, hey, like how do I get into YC? But it's like that's the what the idea is focused on. Like that's
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
NYC only ends like after 8 weeks, right? You're on your own. So what are you gonna do with the company that you inherit now?
Yeah, I love it. All right, now I have the final question for you, Yi, and this is just fits with the premise of the whole podcast. How are you making sure that you stay future proof?
That me personally stays future
Yes,
proof.
yeah.
I think we just have to be who, like, what humans do all along, just to be very hungry for new knowledge, to stay curious. I think that's the best way to stay future proof is to retain the most human element, right? I mean, we spent actually, you know what? Your
Hmm.
research scientists spend a lot of time making sure the models are curious, that they are interested in things that's other than the objective that you're given to them. But that is something that we, human have naturally. So I think to stay future proof, we almost have to lean into the most human aspect of it, right? If we are a machine, then we will get very easily replaced by another machine. But if we're not a machine, then I don't think there's anything to be worried about.
I love it. I think we should definitely end it there because that is just perfect.